Fellow citizens, nationals, residents and friends, St. Kitts and Nevis has been moving forward on two tracks for several months now. On one track, the track on which the duly elected government moves, there has been the same high level of assessment, planning and activity that there has always been. There has been the drafting of laws and the signing of agreements. There has been our presence at historic international fora and the beginning and completion of important projects. Your government continues to assiduously address itself to matters pertaining to the management of the economy, the provision of vitally needed social services, and the protection of the nation's interests. In other words, the government that you elected has continued to govern as we have, with energy and tenacity, met the myriad and consequential responsibilities associated with the running, the protecting, and the shaping of a proud nation. On the other track have been the cases, the legal cases that have been brought before the court by members of an opposing political party, supposedly as a means of signaling displeasure with the boundaries that were established by proclamation on July the 9th, 2009, with both the National Assembly and the Governor General respectively, properly and thoroughly assuming their constitutionally mandated roles. Let us remember, as we review the events of the past few months, that our Constitution establishes and asserts the concept of separation of powers. And so, of necessity, the deliberations of the court have had to proceed on a track that is completely separate and distinct from the governance-related responsibilities of my government. Now, that having been said, however, I must admit that as someone with special responsibilities toward this country, had hoped that by this time the nation would have received a ruling from the court. At the very least, in order for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis to have greater clarity vis-a-vis the thinking and analysis of the court. And secondly, because this ruling will have some bearing on how, as Prime Minister, and with strict adherence to the Constitution, I assess the various timing scenarios regarding the people of St. Kitts and Nevis exercising their sacred and most important right to vote. But before discussing much further the importance to us all of the court issuing a ruling without waiting much longer, I want us to reflect for a moment on what an important, indeed what an essential undertaking our recently concluded electoral reform process was. Commonwealth analysts had strongly recommended it. My own government had long seen need for it. And even opposing politicians themselves had repeatedly and stridently demanded it. And so, as a part of our sweeping and sorely needed electoral reform package, we consulted widely, both at home and abroad. Inter alia, we established a new photo-based national ID system to avoid electoral fraud. We cleaned up the electoral list and created a new voters register. New electoral boundaries were established in order to ensure greater numerical equivalency amongst and between electoral constituencies, based, of course, on constituency inhabitants. All of this was done not simply by my government or my party, but by the duly empowered electoral authorities. So let me say now how fortunate we in St. Kitts and Nevis, and indeed how fortunate our brothers and sisters throughout the Caribbean are, that we live in constitutional democracies. Constitutions represent solidity because what happens and what does not happen, even in the face of unusual circumstances, is clarified by the Constitution. When there is disagreement as to the way forward, again there is the Constitution illuminating that path, the cornerstone of stability. Let me also say, however, that it is very important that those seeking political power, whether in St. Kitts and Nevis or elsewhere, respect and adhere to the time-proven means of achieving such power. And that is, they must be willing to put in the long hours, to make the extraordinary effort, and to invest the tremendous energy that is required in order to win the trust and the support of the electorate. While the courts are a revered and essential component of our democracy, and while it speaks to the strength of our democracy that every national citizen and resident has inviolable access to our court system, our courts should nevertheless, or nonetheless, I should say, be used as a means of settling legitimate disputes between dissenting parties. While, as a matter of right, any political party is free to do whatever it wishes as far as the courts are concerned, as a matter of basic political maturity, one would expect political parties to understand how very inappropriate it is to use the courts as a means of getting attention that would otherwise not be forthcoming. There should be an instinctual awareness that the courts should never be used in an attempt to create a crisis where no crisis theretofore existed. And one would expect from such parties a natural shying away from even a suggestion that the courts be used to frustrate the electorate, test the limits of the Constitution, or, for that matter, confuse the lives and minds of ordinary men and women. Yet, there is the filing of one court case after another, after another, after another. As a matter of fact, there are, as you know, a number of appeals that are currently pending. In an attempt to meet its responsibilities, the Eastern Caribbean Court of Appeal invited the various parties to agree to the hearing of the appeal in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.